Thank you.
Steve, would you read the norms for us today? Thank you. One of you be willing to? That'd be wonderful.
That was easily.
So we're kind of sharing mics, is that how?
Yep.
Just passing them around? Okay.
Well,
Is there a button to push or?
No, it should be on.
Okay.
All the mics are hot, right?
Are we ready to go? Oh, yes, he knows we're going. Oh, what was that one? Oh, that, okay. I'll just wait 1 second till Brenda says something. Okay, yeah, I can slide this over. It's 5:15 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to recognize all our guests in the audience tonight. Would you please stand and recite the pledge with me? Where is our flag? Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Better? Okay. Should I do the change in the agenda like we? Okay. Steve, would you be willing to read our school board norms?
Board norms are decisions will be based on the board's strategic plan, its mission, and what's best for students. The board will act as stewards of tax dollars. Board members will complete foundation work to be prepared for meetings. Meetings will be efficient. All perspectives will be voiced and heard. All board members will maintain a professional decorum.
Thank you. Any conflicts of interest to declare? Moving on to our consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Brenda? Second by Diane. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Moving into our regular agenda, any recognition tonight? No. No correspondence. We're going to have a slight adjustment to the order of our schedule tonight. We're going to, under D, Board Education, number 2, the Educational Competency Makerspace. We're going to move that up to be done right now so we can move into the makerspace and go through the presentation in there. And this is the reason we are having the board meeting tonight at the high school, is so we get to tour, have the opportunity to tour our wonderful makerspace. Due to our students' time and schedule and practices, if we could just do that first, if that's okay with everyone. And then we will come back for superintendent's report and go through the rest of the agenda. Okay. We'll move into the makerspace at the end of the library. You want to take that with?
Yeah.
Yep, we'll have to take that with. There you go. Good.
Mike? Or whatever you want us to do, I can get a flash.
Put it up there.
Do you have a flash you want to put it on?
Make sure it works first.
Austin,
Watch
or,
it. Watch it.
that's what we do, is this thing, the CSB. Are we first ones up? Should I just leave us up?
When we pull that out of the way, it will slide right off. You want the mouse or you can do it?
We need good touchpads, pair. Oh, sure.
I got to tour it a couple months ago and it's come a long way. Mrs. Carpenter is telling us some of the math projects. Talk about getting kids excited about something, you know, instead of just nodding off. It's great.
Okay, so we're going to do your superintendent report.
Okay.
Moving on in the agenda, we're going to do the superintendent's report, and then after that, we will have our educational competency, the high school counselor report. Rob? We're sharing here. Yep.
Okay. Just a few items, I'll be brief, but the strategic planning, one of the things that we've been working on is trying to take that next step in strategic planning. I have reached out and visited with some consultants, and I outlined that a little bit. So I'm still working with some more discussions, but that's where I'm at. I would like to look at one of those two consultants. One is a practitioner, a retiring superintendent in a large Class A district who has outstanding strategic planning experience, and I think that field perspective would be valuable. And then there's also Big River, and again, it's just kind of the two different styles, you know, the practitioner versus the full-on consultant. And so I want to visit a little bit more with both of those groups, and then I'll bring a recommendation looking at, you know, costs and process and all that stuff. So that'll be coming in the near future. In terms of board education, I've talked about that already. One thing I wanted to point out with the board education side that I want to reinforce in terms of what's coming up in board education is in our Choice Ready components last time, we talked about the 4-year rolling plans. And I think it's important that we recognize, as I said last meeting, this is another extra burden that we're placing upon our counselors. And I think it's a nice segue into an area that we have upcoming on our agenda, and that is the resignation of a less than full-time counselor. I think there's an opportunity here for us to be responsive to some very specific needs that are happening in our district, in our state, but also to take advantage of that retirement or that resignation and maybe expand that additional time from 0.7 to a full-time FTE, and I'll be making that request later on in our agenda. It's one of those areas that we're going to have to find a little bit of extra room in our budget, and I'm not sure how Sally and I are going to do that yet, but I think it's important and we need to make that commitment. Our counselors, as you've heard, from elementary to middle school already in this board education process, and you know they're stretched thin. Our high school counselors are stretched thin too. I'm sure they will tell you as they go through their presentation all of the work that they do. Any additional support that we can give them, I think, is very important. And when you're looking at those 4-year rolling plans, now those are ESSA requirements. These aren't nice to haves, these are need to haves. And as we make those changes, I think it's important that we consider the workload that people already have. So I wanted to just touch on that before they present. The Striving Reader Grant is something that I'm continuing to work on. That is a very short timeline and turnaround. I put the eligibility requirements in my report. 2 of those we don't meet. We need to meet 1 of the 4, okay? The last 2 are really pretty ambiguous. There aren't cut scores to say how it's different than the first, 40% on free and reduced, which we don't meet. But the other ones are high concentration of disadvantaged students below literacy proficiencies, and the highest numbers of students not meeting literacy standards in grades 3, 5, and 8 based on the state assessment. There isn't a cut score that says this percent or that percent. It is ambiguous. And so those are the 2 that we may meet. And there are other challenges, one of which we got addressed today in a conversation I had with the Department of Public Instruction related to one of the assessments that they require. The grant that they wrote to the federal level specifically said NWA map testing, that you had to use NWA map testing. Well, we use STAR, and there's probably about 40% of the school districts in the state of North Dakota that use STAR assessment. We made that transition for lots of reasons. And so we did get clarity that we would be able to use any of the interim assessments. So we would still qualify. There was a time where we were thinking we may not qualify just on a basis of an interim assessment, and we wouldn't change our interim assessments again. You know, we have baseline data now. We wouldn't want to make that change. It would be taking us a couple steps backwards to get a grant, and I'm not willing to do that, nor am I willing to commit to another interim assessment. I think we have enough. Louis L'Amour principal hiring process, I have outlined the timeline that I'm suggesting for that. So we'll post the position after that resignation, or after that is approved today. And then I have the different timelines there. The hope is that we can have a new principal recommended to you by March 19th. I will need 2 board members as part of the process that I've used in the past. We have targeted 2 teachers now, so we're looking for 2 board members. And then we'll start moving forward with determination of characteristics, skills. We'll create an interview rubric, all those things as we have done in the past in the near future. So that is my report, other than what is listed and written in there. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Any questions on the board? Okay. So we're going to be moving on now to the second item in our board education, educational competencies, high school counselors report, Gail Nelson and Julie Skunberg. And as they make their way to the podium, I'd also like to welcome and recognize our Boy Scouts in the audience that are here doing their communication project.
Hi, I'm Gail,
And I'm Julie.
and we're here to present to you tonight about what we do here at the high school. Just kind of ironically, the week that we're here to present to you, this is the American School Counseling Week, so it's kind of nice that we are able to come and start that celebration of that week with you all. Next, we'll talk about who are we, and I know some of this is probably a repeat for you, but we are a master's degree profession. Right now, that master's degree requires 48 credits. We are licensed and credentialed through North Dakota DPI and ESPB. Our licensure renewal is every 4 years, with 5 credits of those coming from professional development within those 4 years. And we have to beat both national and state association standards.
All right. So our American School Counseling Association, that provides our framework for how we develop our year and the things that we try to do with all of the students. I guess just a little shout out for Mrs. Nelson and I. In 2015, we received the ACE in School Counseling Award, which meant that our program aligned with the ASCA standards.
It was also quite an intense project that we went through. We did it over a 2-year period, collecting data, and yeah, it's almost like as much work as my master's thesis was, if not maybe more.
And the North Dakota School Counseling Association has a framework almost identical to the ASCA Association. So we line everything up with both of those. And basically the 3 domains that we work with are academic, career, and then personal social.
In the spring of 2016, we conducted a random sampling of our high school students, and we collected some data. We'll be doing that ongoing, just to get a representation of what our needs are of our students. We did a needs assessment. In that needs assessment, of course, we are not going to share everything with you. We know that you don't need all of that yet tonight, but some of the things that we thought were kind of key was that 80% of our students believed they had the skills necessary to be successful at high school. A common staff concern that was pointed out was the need for more counseling services to meet all student needs. That tended to be a need that was universal across all levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. Based on data, we also showed that many of our students felt the need for a safe space group. So we started a safe space group this year. We'd always struggled with groups because of just meeting times. So with our new Wednesday schedule, that allowed a great opportunity for us to use that Wednesday morning as a chance to meet. Based on data, there was also a need for other groups, but staffing and time constraints don't allow, so we weren't able to roll all of those out at once. Many of those needs that were identified by those groups are now being met through that home curriculum with the mindsets, but there is always room for more of those.
All right, and how do we serve our students? Guidance curriculum is when we get into the classroom and actually spend class time with each of the grades, and we do that for all of our grades, reaching academic, career, and our personal social domains. We do individual student counseling, and that is definitely a bulk of our delivery, meeting students for registration and all of that, and then anything that arises throughout the day that we need to deal with. And counseling sessions are confidential, and they can range anywhere. You know, a student walking in, we could maybe meet their needs in one session, or it could be something that maybe we're delegated through an IEP to meet with them weekly or things like that. Indirect services where we meet with teachers, we're consulting with parents, special ed staff, social services, mental health professionals in the community, and I guess whoever it is that particular student needs to be successful. And then we're, of course, crisis response. Whatever it is that walks in, we deal with. Additional responsibilities of the high school counselor that we feel, transition meetings. Every year when we come back to work in the end of July, we meet individually with every ninth grader and their parents. And just, try to introduce ourselves, give them a tour of the building, go over their schedule, discuss how is high school going to be different than middle school, and try to just, make them feel comfortable when they come here that first day. We also just had our 8th grade transition day too, where we had the 8th graders up in our building for an entire day, where they spent half the day here and then half the day at the Career and Tech Center. So they were able to see classrooms and meet the principals, and
It was
just
a lot of fun.
a lot of fun. And then individual senior meetings is another mandate that we have, where we sit down and meet with every 12th grader to discuss their post-high school plan. And we know now that that is changing with the new Choice Ready, as it's going to be a rolling 4-year plan.
So we'll talk about that coming up.
Yep. Registration, we're in the process of that right now. Each year we meet with every student in the school, 9, 10, and 11th grade, to discuss their 4-year plan, make sure they have the credits they need to graduate, recover any classes that they didn't pass, and just make sure they're ready for the next year, whether that's summer school or whatever their needs might be. We have senior parent night, where we discuss financial aid and post-high school options with students and parents. We have a college application day where we work with the Bank of North Dakota to allow our students from 8 to 4 one day, they are able to apply to any North Dakota college for free. So we do that here at Jamestown High. And then we have an awards night in the spring, where we recognize all types of awards of our students.
So additional high school counselor responsibilities, we also do the college fair. We host a college fair in September, where we have representatives from colleges, military, and other post-high school options are here. We do a career literacy day fair this year. It's tentatively scheduled for April 12th. On that day, we bring in a variety of different careers, and we have those people talk about different types of literacy needs that are met or needed in those different careers. We find that our kids sometimes oftentimes take that very seriously. They see those people who are coming in as experts on that, and we'll even have kids come in and try and up their rigor based on the things that we hear. But we also want them to start thinking of literacy as something not just that happens in their English classrooms, that literacy is something far beyond, and it's a wonderful joint project that we've done. We also would do new student registration. So when we have new students, we try and meet with them and help them feel comfortable and know what they're doing. At the end of the year, we also need to go in and we verify data that's necessary in STARS. We do ACT data if it's needed for the North Dakota Academic or Career Tech Scholarship interest inventory data. We also will verify the state scholarships, and that takes a good part of that week that we are in after school. And if it goes well, it takes a good part of that week. If it doesn't go well, it extends. We're usually coming back and clearing up a few loose ends with that. So you go
Okay,
ahead.
alrighty. Testing is another big responsibility of the high school counselor. The PSAT, we coordinate and administer that test, and that is the test which students can qualify to be a National Merit Scholar. The ASVAB test, the ACT, with the ACT test, we do testive ACT prep with all of our juniors. We offer 2 Saturdays where they can do ZAPS ACT training at the high school here. We just had that last Saturday. And then we coordinate the state ACT exam for all juniors, which we house here in the high school. And that's quite a day I know it sounds like, oh, you host the ACT test, but to really see this in action, and Mrs. Nelson has kind of been the organizer of that. It's, you're blocking off an entire part of a school while you have the other 9th, 10th, and seniors in the building functioning through their day while
Plus finding proctors to do that. Plus we
It's-
also have kids who are taking those tests arranged, depending upon how many of those kids need one-on-one tests. It's kind of a coordinating nightmare, and when it's all done, it's a really good feeling. Yeah, when that's done and it's been smooth, that's a great feeling.
And then we do the AP exams where we register the kids and administer the AP exam for AP Literature and Comp, Language and Comp, Calculus, Government and Politics, and then AP Studio Art. Are you guys getting tired yet of everything we do?
That's not to mention if they're, slipping a few crises in those too while those are happening.
Exactly.
We also are the entity that helps disseminate information for scholarships for students. Dollars for Scholars is something that we have all of our seniors registered for when they have that senior meeting. We sit on the Dollars for Scholars Board where we attend meetings and try and help so we know what's current and how to disseminate that information. We also will coordinate other outside scholarships for organizations in our community and our state. We write reference letters. I can write a reference letter in my sleep. I've got it down really good. We also help our students qualify for the North Dakota Academic and Career Tech Scholarship. We track and assist an average of 50 students a year to qualify for that $6,000 state, and we've been really consistent in averaging about 50 students a year. I'm really proud of our students, and they do very well, and again, we go in and verify all of that information for the scholarship and with DPI. We coordinate a lot with them, and we're on the phone a lot with DPI afterwards, trying to iron things out.
And basically, too, for this, the $6,000 scholarship, kids, when they come in as freshmen, and already when they're in middle school, we're talking about, this isn't something that as a senior you apply for and you get. It's a process throughout your high school where you're trying to earn certain credits. You need so many AP, dual credit, you need foreign language, depending on what track you're in. So we're tracking these students from the time we get them, trying to get them to that point. And when we get to the choice ready part at the end, that is adding this tracking piece that we do with seniors to now the entire student body.
So it's going to be on steroids now.
Right, as they will each have an additional plan.
So Choice Ready, we'll give you the Choice Ready handout. I know you're all familiar, but we'll highlight on there some of the things that are kind of specific to high school counseling. We'll give you a chance to look at that and then just kind of highlight some of the things that are high school specific. I have to be honest that I did not know about this when I made my decision to retire, but it didn't make me feel any worse about my decision. We'll say that when I looked at this. Just when you look at this, the essential skills component, there's going to have to be some kind of data keeping responsibility for this that is bigger than anything I've been able to comprehend or do so far as a school counselor. You're going to have to coordinate that 25 hours of community service. You're going to have to make sure that we meet that 95% attendance goal, work-based learning experiences. And I'd like to add that Mr. Gaylor, being the visionary that he is, has incorporated a lot of things already that are necessary for this. So a real shout out to him for his vision for our school to have that. 2 or more years in an organized co-curricular activity, 2 or more years in an organized extracurricular activity, successfully complete a capstone project, successfully complete an online learning course, and then demonstrate that competency in the 21st century skills. So we're going to have to make sure that they meet at least 4 of those indicators, and that's going to be a tracking nightmare. And somewhat too, the kids are going to want to make some decisions based on that when we do that 9th grade transition meeting. Then they'll have to meet 2 or more of the Choice Ready components. As you look at that, I'll let you highlight some of those, and we can talk about the logistics a little bit of that.
Yes, and just to talk again about the essential skills, like if I look at the one, successfully complete an online learning course, then the description under that says, each student, it can't be an online course that we're saying all students will take the same online course. Each student should have the option of picking an online course and taking the one of their choice. So, it's hard to wrap your head around when you think of 600 and some kids, how this will all happen.
We've been trying to look and spend some time just, diving into this and looking more into it and thinking of possibilities on making it work and work with our demographic and resources.
And, because just any of us in education, when you look at this, if you have your own kid graduating out of a school district that does this, this is awesome. All of it is good for kids. It'll just be the people running it trying to figure out how do we best manage. But then on the bottom, each student will have to qualify for 2 of those out of the 3. So again, we'll just be tracking kids. Are you a post-secondary kid? Then if that's the case, you need to meet that criteria. And then which other one are you going to fit into? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even, it'll be a positive for kids when we figure out how we're going to make
But,
the paperwork work.
Yeah, and some of it will have to be, the kids are going to have their rolling year 4-year plans, which will be adjusted yearly. But some of these too, let's say they're looking to meet it through being post-secondary ready and workforce ready. If now all of a sudden they aren't meeting the ACT requirements, we're having a new discussion. And we're having to look at how do we help them either make that ACT benchmarks that they need, or do we meet it now through other, being military ready or workforce ready. So this is going to also have to have a lot of flexibility in it as we're working with students as well. And just time-wise too, one thing that I know most school counselors never went into it for the bookkeeping. We went into it because we like working with kids. This is going to take a lot of time away from us working with kids, which is not going to decrease those needs. But like I said, most of us don't want to lose that aspect of working with the student as well.
One other point too, with the 4-year plans have been around for quite a while, where we work with kids. They start in 8th grade and they basically plan out what curriculum or coursework they're going to take through high school. And now the rolling 4-year plan is, we're planning for each year of high school plus a year beyond that. So when you're a freshman in high school, you're planning for high school plus your first year beyond, and then sophomore for 2 years beyond. So we're sitting down and now looking at, what maybe took us a certain amount of time because we were planning out their high school, but now we're extending that to have them look beyond.
I'd also like to point out while we get a chance that our intern that we've been lucky enough to have this year is here with us, Alyssa Hornbaker. She has been invaluable. I don't know how we would have done the stuff that we're doing this year without the help that we've had from such a fantastic intern. So I just wanted to give her a shout out. We've also been lucky to have Allie Mack, who is up in conferences, to help 2 hours a week first semester and 1 hour, or 2 hours a day first semester, 1 hour a day this semester. That has helped quite a bit.
And before we get into the question slide, I guess I just want to take this opportunity to say Gail is retiring. And I've been in the department for 6 or 7 years, but her expertise and knowledge has been invaluable in what you've done for the kids and all of us. I mean, it really has. So as we also transition into this next phase of responsibility and that, I mean, losing somebody like this with her knowledge is kind of scary. So I appreciate Gail and everything you've done for all of the kids over the years.
And you can still text me or call
Yep,
anytime.
they will do that. You'll
I'm
be on
right
speed
here.
dial. So that is everything kind of in a nutshell that we're trying to show you what the high school counselor does.
Questions?
Are there any questions from the board? Greg?
The years that you have been working with kids in all those years, and of course, I mean, the workload is increasing and everything, but have you seen any type of trends that might be a common denominator that, or is it like it was years ago? What do you kind of see that's changed?
Well, I started out, I was an elementary counselor for a number of years, and then I worked as a career tech counselor for 2 years, and then at the high school. One of the things that's created a lot of interesting demands, or what I've seen impact students a lot, is the emergence of technology and smartphones, and that has been really probably one of the bigger changes, and what that does to students, and stress and relationships. And I mean, I hear from elementary counselors that they're using. I mean, what is I'm not really good at it, but Snapchat wars and some of those things. There used to be kind of a break when they went home that you didn't have that constant contact, so you can kind of get a little reset button. It seems like that's been a really huge change. That's increased a lot of the needs. A lot of the studies I'm seeing is linking some of our increased, the increase in teen and child depression seems to be also linked to when smartphones and technology also exploded. So I do see a rise in that, a rise in anxiety in students. Just general needs like that have increased. That's a big one. How about you?
Yeah. And we were just talking about this not too long ago. I started in the counseling area in 2011, and I was telling her I can't believe how, in that short time, how it has changed. When I think about my first days down there and what you thought was a busy day or what kind of took your breath away is now, I mean, it's just tenfold. I mean, the mental health issues that we deal with are just, I mean, it's just, it's really unbelievable when you see what's coming in each day and what you're dealing with. And I mean, what you intended to do for the day is not, because we're dealing with so much. And I know that's statewide, you know, but mental health issues and you know, it's getting to be where educators have to be mental health professionals too. You can no longer just stand up and teach your subject area. I mean, you're managing a lot.
I've also seen a huge increase in the mobility of people. It used to be really rare that we'd get new students. Now we get many, many, far more than we ever did before. It used to be maybe a handful, especially at semester time. And I think we've had 6 or 7. Yeah, that's been a huge, you've seen that? Yeah, that's just a huge change. And there's just a more mobile, and that they leave as fast sometimes as they come. Sometimes just as we get things figured out and get kind of a feel for a kid, they're gone. And you feel like you've got them back on track, and so that's been a huge change. But I think kids at their heart are very much the same as they've always been. Yeah. With the same needs and wants and.
Any other questions?
Just have a comment. I want to thank you both. I know the board has heard me say this before, but there's really 3 pillars in public education. There's the custodial, there's the academic, and the social and emotional. And counselors are the linchpin, in my opinion, for all those pillars to work together. And so I appreciate very much that the work that you do, you've given us a good idea of what you do. And I think it's important that we know all of those things that you do, which is why you're here and sharing a little bit. But you guys do an amazing job. It's a very difficult job, and it's one that's very important to us. And so we appreciate very much all of the efforts and the work that you do. And we recognize that it gets harder, you know, and unfortunately things don't ever seem to get easier. They only seem to get harder, but we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you, guys.
So, thank you, and thank you, Gail, for your years of service to our district. So, moving on in our agenda here, we're going to letter E, old business. We don't have anything under old business. F, new business. There's nothing under activities or buildings and grounds. Nothing under curriculum assessment and instruction. Moving on to number 4, finance. Can I have a motion to approve the student travel study program to Germany for the summer of 2018?
So moved.
Jennifer, motion. Bob, second. Did you want to comment on?
You know, typically we have this in our consent agenda, and I wanted to put it in our regular part of the agenda just so everybody is understanding or knowledgeable about what it is. We do send our students abroad. It is an opportunity they would have once in their high school career if they are in the foreign language department. It is an amazing opportunity. I think every student that attends would probably tell you the same thing, that it is really a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity to go there with your peers, be immersed in the language and experience the culture of wherever it is that you're going, whether that's over to Spain, whether it's to Germany. And so we do that. Our students raise the money. And so, you know, there isn't a commitment necessarily from you. that way, or any change, I should say, than what we have done in the past. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the program. And like I said, traditionally, we put that in the consent agenda, but I wanted to put it on here in the event that there's questions or, just for awareness.
Any questions? Jennifer?
As somebody who did partake in one of these a couple decades ago, there is nothing like it, so I'm really glad that we're still able to support it. And like you said in the information, the students raised the money to be able to do this. We're just saying that, we're supporting our teacher to continue to do these activities, and I hope we continue to do it in the future.
Anything else?
Cost of the salary of the teacher.
Yeah,
So there's a minor cost. but it
minor
isn't-
costs, the salary teacher, but no change in our overall support, right? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Number 5, personnel. Approval of resignation of Vicki Combs, principal at Louis L'Amour Elementary, at the conclusion of the 2017-2018 school year. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Brenda? Second by Greg. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. B, motion passed. Approval of resignation of Tom Copeland, automotive instructor at James Valley Career and Tech Center, at the conclusion of the 2017-2018 school year. Could I have a motion? And a second? By Cedric, second by Brenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. C, approval of resignation of Sheila Nelson, speech language pathologist, at the conclusion of the 2017-2018 school year. Could I have a motion? Bob, motion. Second by Steve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. And D, approval of resignation of Tressie Mitchell, elementary counselor, at the conclusion of the 2017-2018 school year. Could I have a motion? Motion by Cedric,
Second.
second by Jennifer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. And oh, yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Just one quick comment on all of these.
Yes.
There's some very good people that have served, and we really appreciate their years of service and their commitment to Jamestown Public Schools, and we wish them the very best in the future to retire and do whatever they want to do, so.
Yes, thank you, Greg. We do very much appreciate that.
Can I interrupt? Can we say Vicki Combs not at the end of the school year, but at the end of her contract period?
Sorry,
Oh.
thank you.
Under A, do we need another motion, or are you? okay
Just
to
clarification.
Clarification.
Clarification that it would be the end of her contract period.
Yes.
Because her contract extends past the school year.
Yeah, okay, so for Vicki Combs, principal at Louis L'Amour Elementary, at the conclusion of her contract period. Any questions on that? Okay, all right, thank you. So we're at, under personnel, we're at letter E, and this is approval to post and hire a 1.0 FTE counselor. Is there a motion to approve? Greg? Second by Bob. Discussion. Bob?
Well, I just thought I would leave it open for questions in the event. I do think, you've seen over the last couple of meetings that there's a need here for some support. The work of our counselors is continuing to evolve and change, take on more components. I think this is an opportunity. I think we have to look at a few different components of that. One is the ability to find somebody that would like to be less than full-time is already going to be pretty difficult. The counseling position in general is very difficult to fill. That is a hard-to-fill position. And then you're also talking about the responsibilities. I think we can certainly find different ways that we could utilize that 0.3 time. If you're looking at the example I gave in my board report, if you're looking at somebody with 5 years, or I should say on step 5, the addition of that person would be about $6,000. Of course, I want to be cautious with that because that's if we hire that person. That may not be the person we find. We may find somebody with less experience. We might find somebody with more experience, and that changes that continuum of the cost, appropriately. But I think it's a valuable resource, and I think it's one that we need to invest in. And it isn't a significant change to what we're doing, but I think it could have a very good impact on our counseling department, and I think it's something that we would have to look at. We have done a very good job with our counseling department in meeting their needs. But as things change, we just have to do more.
Any questions? We have a motion and a second. Any other questions, Jennifer?
So trustee, was it with the elementary staff, and we just got a report and of this 4-year rolling plan of what needs will be at the high school. Do you have any vision yet of how that would kind of break out? Because I don't know if the same person would want to be a 0.3 high school counselor and then a 0.7 elementary counselor. That's quite a large gap. So I was just wondering if you have a vision at all.
Well, it's something we would have to flesh out a little bit in terms of how that would work, who that person would be, or how that breakdown would work. But they would be K-12 certified. And so, maybe that's moving other parts and pieces around, depends on the people that we hire in their areas of expertise and where they're fitting best. So it could shift some other things around. But we also have the CTC counselor that's there. Mrs. Skunberg had mentioned we have Mrs. Mack, who is certified in counseling that teaches business, so she fills in some too. So we do have some pieces that we can move around. I think the time is what I think every level could probably use, would tell you they could use some time, and I think it just comes down to fitting the pieces together.
Any other questions? If no further questions, we're going to do a roll call vote since it's an impact to our budget. Sally?
Robert Toso,
Yes.
Diane Hansen, Greg Allen,
Yes.
Heidi Larson,
Yes.
Jennifer Schmidt,
Yes.
Brenda Remick,
Yes.
Steve Veldkamp,
Yes.
and Cedric Truthick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
It's different every time.
Moving on to policy and procedures. Could I have a motion to approve the second reading of unauthorized purchases policy DEBJ? Motion? Bob, second? Cedric? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Can I have a motion to approve the first reading of amended visitors in the school policy KAAA? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Jennifer? Motion second? No. Steve? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Tuition. Approval of a tuition agreement for a 12th grade Litchfield Marion student to attend Jamestown Public Schools for the 2017-2018 school year. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Brenda? Second by Greg. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Approval of a tuition agreement for a 10th grade Jamestown student to attend Beach Public Schools for the 2017-2018 school year. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Jennifer? Second? Second, Cedric? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Moving on to items for future agenda. Do we have any items for? Okay. Just let Superintendent Leck know if you have some items you'd like to be added to. Did you? No. Okay.
I'd like an update on the ag department at the Jamestown current check.
Okay.
See how that's going, because that was a big issue last spring.
Farm business management.
Yes.
Farm business.
Okay.
Any other items to consider? Okay. Moving on to meetings to be scheduled. Co-curricular meeting will meet Wednesday, February 7th at 4:30 in the district office conference room. Healthcare committee meeting Monday, February 12th at 3:30 in the district office conference room. And our next school board meeting is Monday, February 19th at 5:15, and we'll be back in the Thompson Auditorium at the middle school for that. Don't forget to click on the monthly superintendent evaluation, goal and vision setting, and operations and resource management. And also, if you click on your adjournment, you can rate the meeting. With that, meeting is adjourned.